Hello noble ones, welcome back to my channel. This is the Metatron speaking. As you know, on this channel I've called out several professors who, instead of doing their job and teaching their subject in the most academically neutral way possible, use their position to do political activism. Well, today we have another one of those. The name of the professor in question is Roberto De Mattei. He's an Italian historian, teaches at the Sapienza of Roma, and is professor emeritus. Now, as you know, on this platform I've promised that I would debunk nonsense regardless of what side it comes from, and believe it or not, in this case it's coming from my side, in the sense that the man is a Christian and is allowing his own personal beliefs to skew his interpretation of history for the sake of pushing his own messages. Over the years I've debunked all sorts of activism coming from both sides, and today, as a matter of intellectual rigor, I will do the same. To me, it doesn't matter if the nonsense comes from the left or the right, or, as in this case, from the Christian perspective. If it's nonsense and it has to do with history, I'll debunk it. There are several statements that the professor made publicly, some of which during many interviews in a popular radio station and articles all over the internet. Professor De Mattei claims that ancient Rome fell because of homosexuality, that barbarian invasions were a punishment from God, that Carthage was destroyed once again because there were too many gays, that the tsunami in Japan was a punishment from God to the Japanese, that the earthquake in Messina, Sicily, which happened a few years ago, was once again a punishment from God. I think you can see the pattern here. Every time that there is mass death, whether it be through war effort, natural disasters, societal collapse, economic struggling, it's God punishing people. Now, if this was just a matter of personal belief, then as a person who believes in freedom of speech, I would say, hey, who cares? He can believe whatever he wants. But the problem is that he's in a position of authority and he constantly pushes this message, while at the same time being one of the leading teachers of history in one of the most prestigious universities in Rome. And not only, his books are riddled with these notions, which completely fall flat the split second you look at the actual real reasons as to why any of these things happened, and I will share them here. But it does beg the question, is this how he teaches history? As you know, on this channel, whenever I do make videos on any subject, I try to approach them from a secular standpoint, particularly when talking about history, social issues, historical politics, and linguistic matters. And I do that to maintain and ensure a certain level of intellectual rigor in my productions. Besides, and as I will explore more in details later on this video, this sort of explanation falls flat not only in comparison to the real historical, economic, military, and social reasons as to why certain extreme events occur, but it defies logics. Think about it for a moment. Carthage was destroyed because they were gay as a punishment. So what you're telling me is that all they did before that, idolatry, worshipping of false gods, slavery, murder, crime, invasions, injustice, possibly child sacrifice, cruelty to prisoners, torture, greed, all sorts of evil, all of that was fine. It did not call for God's punishment, just as long as I don't get gay on me. That's where I draw the line. Utter destruction then. In ideologically driven positions, even the logic ceases to function. His personal politics, once again his own freedom, appear to be quite extreme. In fact, he has managed to upset both conservatives and progressives in Italy, including conservative Catholic historian Archbishop Agostino Marchetto, who calls his productions and books ideological and hyperbolic. Last but not least, on this article, among other things, as I was looking into his own personal politics just to have an idea, and to clarify, I looked into his politics after I debunked his statements, which I recorded before looking into it, to avoid any possible selective bias on my end. When it comes to his own personal political affiliation, at least publicly, he has an entire blog where he criticizes and attacks the center. In other words, by tweaking a little bit the words here and there, he fundamentally considers centrism and moderation as a danger. He attacks all forms of left-wing positions, whether it be socialism or communism, but also has a bone to pick with the center-right in Italy. And by reading this, the idea that comes out is that of some sort of theocratic position, which would be the exact opposite to the notion of the separation of church and state. Now listen, I've made a lot of content debunking the LGBTQ activists that try to spam modern concepts into classical antiquity, the medieval period. I remember this channel saying the medieval knights were encouraged to have homosexual relationships, like all of that nonsense I've debunked multiple times. But this idea of Rome falling because of the gays, it's the, oh my gosh, it's as stupid as it gets. Outrageous top Italian history professor blames fall of Rome on rise of homosexuality. Fall of Rome. A professor is facing calls to resign after blaming the collapse of the Roman Empire on homosexuality, now Gibbon. Of course I disagree. It's nonsense to say that it was because of gay people that Rome fell. There are specific reasons, which are economic, military, immigration, foreign policy related. There is a lot. I'll tell you in this video. Of course I will. And it's such a complex picture that to say, oh, it was the gays, it's the stupidest thing ever, because it demonstrates that you haven't studied the actual phenomena, like what happened. I would cancel a person's job, although then again, teacher of history, that's the thing, then has this opinion. I think he should be allowed to share his opinion. It's a stupid opinion, and I will debunk it, but I wouldn't block him. I think freedom of speech should still be allowed. But then again, if he teaches history, and then he teaches this during his classes, then we're getting into a problem of not necessarily cancelling, but a problem of professionalism. Why does he even have that job at that point? Roberto De Mattei, a devout Roman Catholic, has already raised eyebrows by saying the Japanese tsunami was divine punishment. As a devout Christian, with a family that, of course, is Italian, Roman Catholic, the majority of my family is Roman Catholic, what were the Japanese being punished for is the part that I'm not sure. To connect it, it's a natural catastrophe. I do not believe. If you want to believe that this was divine punishment, believe whatever you want, but I'd like you to motivate it. Like, what were the Japanese being punished for would be my question. I don't believe it's the case. In a radio interview, the vice president of Italy's prestigious Center for National Research said, open quotes, the collapse of the Roman Empire and the arrival of the barbarians was due to the spread of homosexuality. Okay, so this is even worse. It's not just the Roman Empire collapsed because of homosexuality, but also the arrival of the barbarians was due to homosexuality. So what? Oh my gosh. So basically, Rome is having all of these gay people in the streets, like doing all of their gay stuff openly, apparently, even though we know that's not the case, but whatever. So Rome is having all these gay parties, and then barbarians hear that, they're like, ooh, they're having gay parties. Let's go, mate. And that's why they invaded, to get the gays. Oh no. Oh my god, the movement of the people of the steppes, the barbarian invasions, the collapse of the frontier, the problems of the frontier, all the military situation, all of that, so they invaded because of homosexuality. Well, couldn't they have their own homosexuality in the steppes? Oh, I can't believe it. Oh, let's go. Rome is full of homosexuals. Let's get on a horse, Tom. We need to get to the homosexuals in Rome. Oh, this is making my day. Now listen, already, if anything, the late Roman Empire was Christianized. So if anything, there was less homosexuality. Probably the same number of homosexuals, but early Christians will be repressed. Gay people always existed, in fact, same-sex attracted people, I want to say since the dawn of time. Yet, depending on the situation with religious authorities and all that, and in general, how it's taken by the public, they might need to hide it. You can't blame the fall of the Roman Empire during the Dominate to the rise of homosexuality if it's a period of Christianization. It makes zero sense. If anything, it shouldn't have fallen. If that's the logic, so homosexuality makes the whole empire fall, but now the empire is Christianized and you're a Christian, so you're thinking that Christianizing the empire did nothing. If anything, the homosexuals were... It's ridiculous even by his own logics. The reality is that if you study the fall of the Roman Empire, which, by the way, is still discussed, it's debated, there are lots of possible reasons. As I say, I'll share some here, and my own personal interpretation. But this is just a cheap attempt at attacking for social reasons, for whatever it is. If Mr. De Mattei was on his social media platform and saying, I don't like gays, all right, say it, whatever. But the fact that they have to connect it to the empire in order to create this sort of fear-mongering and demagoguery where they're trying to tell you, see, the Roman Empire fell because there were gay people, so we could fall as well if we don't get rid of the gay people. That's the idea.